Emily Carter had always imagined her prom night. The lights, the laughter, the music she would feel through her fingertips instead of her feet. But as prom night neared, her small town's whispers grew louder, mocking the girl in a wheelchair who didn't belong on the dance floor. Her mother sewed her a silver gown by hand, believing beauty had nothing to do with walking. The night of the prom arrived, and so did the cruel reality of exclusion. This was supposed to be her fairy tale, but it began as her heartbreak. The town of Brookhaven was small, too small to forget, and too narrow to forgive anything that looked different. Emily Carter had learned that lesson early. Every bump of her wheelchair on the school hallway floors reminded her that she didn't move like everyone else. But she dreamed just as vividly. Since she was a little girl, she'd imagined her prom. The soft glow of lights reflecting off silver streamers, slow songs that carried promises of forever, and a dress that made her feel like she belonged in a story, not a statistic. Her mother, Claire, worked double shifts at the diner, saving tips in a mason jar labeled Emily's Night. For months, they sat by the sewing machine together, piecing silver fabric into hope. "Maybe they'll see you for who you are this time," Claire said softly. Emily smiled, though she'd stopped believing that a long time ago. "Maybe they will, Mom. Maybe they will." At school, whispers trailed her like shadows. "Who's she going with?" "Maybe the janitor's pushing her to prom." They laughed. Emily didn't. She wheeled past, her face steady, but her heart ached. Prom night came wrapped in the scent of rain and perfume. Claire zipped her daughter's gown, brushed her hair until it shone, and kissed her forehead. "You look like a dream," she whispered. When the car door opened outside the gym, Emily's eyes widened. The building glowed like a castle, strings of fairy lights hanging across the entrance, the faint bass of music trembling through the ground. She rolled forward, breath trembling with excitement. For one brief moment, she forgot everything cruel the world had told her. Then came the voice, sharp, clipped, and cold. "Emily," said Mrs. Thompson, the head teacher, blocking the door. "I'm sorry, but the venue isn't wheelchair accessible." The principal thought it'd be too disruptive for the event. Emily froze. "Disruptive?" she whispered. "I know it's unfair, honey, but rules are rules. Maybe next year." Inside, laughter erupted. A slow song began to play. The door closed. Emily sat outside, her silver dress pooling like spilled moonlight on the pavement. Raindrops began to fall, one by one, until the sequins on her gown looked like tears. Somewhere deep inside, something fragile cracked. Not her hope, but her belief that kindness could exist without proof. She looked at the glowing gym windows, her reflection faint in the glass, and whispered, "They can't even let me dream." The rain fell harder, and as it did, the music inside grew louder, drowning out the sound of one girl's breaking heart. But the world was listening. I just didn't know it yet. The night air was thick with the sound of laughter and music leaking from the gymnasium doors, the kind of sound that promised joy to everyone except Emily Carter. She sat alone beneath the blinking neon banner that read, "A Night to Remember." The irony stung. Her silver gown shimmered faintly under the parking lot light, but the fabric was soaked near the hem where raindrops had turned to mud. Her hands trembled against the metal arms of her wheelchair, gripping it like an anchor against the flood of humiliation threatening to drown her. Inside, the bass pulsed like a heartbeat, the world she wasn't allowed to enter. The doors opened for a moment, spilling out a rush of laughter and perfume. A group of girls froze when they saw her. One whispered something behind her hand. Another giggled. The door slammed shut again. Emily's throat tightened. She told herself she didn't care, but she did. God, she did. A familiar voice broke through the noise. "Emily!" Jake Matthews, her childhood friend, came running down the steps, his tux jacket half-buttoned, his face red with anger. "What the hell happened?" "They said you weren't." "I wasn't allowed in," Emily said quietly. "They said it wasn't safe." Jake spun toward the chaperone at the door, a heavy-set man with a badge that read, "Mr. Dalton." "Are you kidding me? You're keeping her out because of a ramp?" Dalton crossed his arms. "Rules are rules, kid. We can't have accidents tonight. Liability." "Liability?" Jake snapped. "She's a student, not a lawsuit." Dalton's expression hardened. "Watch your tone, son. Go back inside before you make this worse." But Jake didn't move. No, not without her. Inside the car, Emily's mother, Claire, watched from the curb. Her hands shook as she lifted her phone, pressing record. She zoomed in on her daughter's tear-streaked face, on Jake standing between her and authority, on the closed door behind them that separated them from everyone else. It wasn't anger that made her hit record. It was the quiet, hollow instinct of a mother who'd seen too much wrong to trust memory alone. The camera caught the moment when Emily whispered, "Let's just go home, Mom." And the moment when Jake looked at Dalton one last time and said, "You'll regret this." They drove away under the same blinking neon lights, a night to remember, now flickering like a cruel joke. By midnight, Claire sat in her small kitchen, eyes red, staring at the video file on her phone. She hesitated only once before pressing upload. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Timelines, news feeds, hashtags. A girl in a wheelchair, crying in her prom dress, denied at the door. And while Brookhaven slept, the world began to wake. The first light of dawn slipped through the blinds of City Hall when Mayor Daniel Harris pressed play on the video for the third time. The clip was shaky, filmed through rain, but clear enough to carve a hole straight through his chest. A young girl in a silver dress sat outside a school gym, her mascara running, her voice trembling as she whispered, "They said I can't come in." Behind her, a man's voice barked, "Rules are rules." Then the door shut. The mayor's hand tightened around his coffee mug until it cracked. He paused the video on her face. That look of disbelief, shame, and something deeper. The quiet kind of pain that never needed words. Daniel had seen that look before. Decades ago, it was his own reflection in a cracked bathroom mirror after being called unfit by the same kind of small-town crowd that smiled in daylight but sneered in whispers. He stood up, buttoned his shirt, and called his aide, "Get me the school board president. Now." By noon, every line of his office buzzed with noise. Reporters, community leaders, angry parents. The town of Brookhaven was on fire, not from flames, but from outrage. The principal stammered on the phone. "It was just a misunderstanding, Mayor. The gym wasn't ADA approved." Daniel cut him off. "No, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was discrimination, and it happened under your watch." He hung up before the man could respond. Then came the calls from the news stations. CNN, local radio, the state newspaper. Everyone wanted a statement, but Daniel didn't want statements. He wanted change. At 5 p.m., he called Claire Carter. Her voice was small but steady. "She hasn't left her room," she said. "She thinks the whole town's laughing at her." Daniel's tone softened. "No one's laughing, Mrs. Carter. They're listening now, and tomorrow they'll see." That night, as the mayor's black sedan rolled through the rain-slick streets, Daniel stared at the windshield, his reflection faint against the lights. He wasn't thinking like a politician. He was thinking like a man who'd seen too many good people buried under silence. He picked up the phone again. "Get me the town square reserved. Music, lights, decorations, everything. And make sure it's accessible to everyone. We're holding a prom." The aide hesitated. "Sir, for who?" "For her," Daniel said simply. "And for every kid who's ever been told they don't belong." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, not the sound of another storm, but of something breaking open. The next evening, the entire town of Brookhaven gathered at the high school, not for lessons, not for a meeting, but for something far more important. The gym that had once shut its doors now gleamed brighter than it ever had before. Strings of white lights hung like constellations, and a deep red carpet stretched all the way to the dance floor. Reporters stood outside, their cameras aimed toward the entrance as whispers rippled through the crowd. Then a hush swept over them. A sleek black car pulled up, its headlights slicing through the dusk. When the door opened, Mayor Daniel Harris stepped out in a crisp suit. Beside him, emerging slowly but radiantly, was Emily Carter, her silver gown catching the light like liquid starlight. She looked nervous but determined, her eyes finding the gym door that once represented everything she wasn't allowed to be. Without hesitation, Daniel bent slightly and extended his hand. "Shall we, Miss Carter?" For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then Emily smiled, small, fragile, but real. She took his hand. As they entered, every sound died. Teachers froze mid-conversation. Students who had once laughed at her now stared, guilt written across their faces. The music stopped entirely as the mayor walked her down the red carpet, their footsteps echoing through the silent hall. The same door that had once been closed to her was now wide open, waiting. When they reached the center of the dance floor, Daniel turned to the DJ and nodded. A slow melody began to play, soft, emotional, full of forgiveness and fire. Emily's wheelchair moved gently as Daniel guided her in rhythm, her silver dress flowing like a wave beneath the lights. The crowd watched, tears glistening in their eyes. This wasn't pity, it was awe, and then, one by one, students began to join in. Jake stepped forward first, offering Emily a grin before taking her hand for a spin. Others followed. The same classmates who had whispered now stood beside her, their eyes filled with quiet remorse. Claire, standing by the wall with trembling hands, could barely breathe. For the first time, her daughter wasn't an outsider. She was the center of something beautiful. When the song ended, Daniel lifted the microphone. His voice carried through the hall, steady and proud. "Tonight isn't about charity or apology," he said. "It's about dignity, something no one should have to earn." Applause erupted. Cameras flashed, and in that small American town, something finally shifted. Not because of a law, but because of a girl in a silver dress who refused to disappear.